Welcome to you all. My name is Andrew Chung. I am artistic producer of London Symphonia, and welcome to Behind the Music. So today I've got with me our very special guest jazz vocalist and pianist extraordinaire, Laila Biali. Hi, Laila.
Hi, Andrew. It's great to be here.
And I've also got with us Scott Good, who is our composer in residence and conductor for our concert on December 10th. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Andrew. Good to see you.
So I'm really excited, pretty jazzed up for this one. Our planning for this concert goes back not that long ago. I think it was just January of this year. Am I right?
You're totally correct, and to me, that feels like a lifetime ago.
I know it feels like
Yeah.
so much longer. We had so many messages and great dialogue back and forth, but it feels like 3 years ago. But it was only January. It was only January.
I know.
Oh, crazy. Now, you know, Laila, we had met some time ago in Stratford. Someone introduced us in a coffee shop. And I remember that moment and I thought, oh, wouldn't it, and I did some digging. I thought, wouldn't it be great to get Laila Biali in to do a symphony show? And I couldn't seem to see that you had done or recorded something with symphony before. So, we pitched this idea to you. You seem to be willing. It working with an orchestra. Is it a daunting thing, or is it something you've had experience with in the past before?
Oh my goodness, it's the stuff of dreams for me. So when I'm now 42. When I went to Humber College and I was 17, my heroes were, big band conductors and orchestrators and arrangers like Vince Mendoza, and Maria Schneider and Kenny Wheeler. And so I actually wanted to be a large ensemble composer.
Oh,
And I even, took a stab at writing for the big band and, quickly determined that it was just not very practical from a logistical place to actually pull off touring a group of that size, or even recording with a group of that size, or just a one-off concert. It's just so much to organize.
mm,
So when you approached me about this, I mean, for me, it was like an absolute no-brainer. And again, truly, I know it can sound a little bit corny, but the fulfillment of a dream. It's absolutely a dream for me.
amazing. I recall that you had told us about a story, and I don't quite have this right. Working with Guy Barker in London, England, with an orchestra.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was my first real experience with a symphony of any kind, other than a chamber orchestra that I had written for in 2015 for kind of an indie pop rock record called House of Many Rooms. So I was invited by the Jazz Festival in London, England, and I believe this would have been 2018. And they have a huge annual gala that kicks off the festival, and they bring in stars like people like Gregory Porter and even stars from the more pop world, and music theater world that kind of cross over into jazz. And so I was invited to be one of, I don't know, maybe 20 artists performing that night, and we did two of my songs adapted to that orchestra by Guy Barker, and I believe it was a 42-piece ensemble. And I mean, it was, pinch me territory. The rehearsal alone, it was all I could do to not burst into tears, or just laugh with joy, because it was such a spectacular experience being carried by not a wall of sound. That's not the way to describe it, but it's such a lush and dynamic palette that, when used well, to me is just sort of the epitome of what can happen in a musical context.
And
So
and I guess when it comes together and it truly works and it flows and the arranger or orchestrator has done his or her, great work, then it's a joy. But it's not always the case. Like, it can be a schmalzo, or parts can be
yeah,
mixed up, or bars miscounted, or different understanding on the arrangement. So, we got Scott Good into the equation pretty early on, and I know that Scott loves these wintertime, seasonal, Christmas time concerts. So when did you reach out to Laila to discuss repertoire, Scott?
I think it was over the summer is when the conversation got going.
Mhm.
And, wanted to kind of set out a general roadmap of what it is we're trying to achieve with this concert. So it's a seasonal time, and I think a healthy dose of nostalgia is always good near Christmas. So, have some familiar songs, but done in new ways. And then also, it's important for us at Symphonia, we like to try and make sure that the guest artist we have is really well represented. So I wanted to make sure that she had some of her own original compositions on it, and as well as featuring the singing and the piano. So it kind of started from there, and then I think Laila has also enjoyed participating at Christmas time and doing various. So there was already kind of a wealth of repertoire, and then she was working on new pieces. So it just kind of fell together, and trying to find a good opener, a good closer, all those kinds of things. And over time, over a couple months, I'd say we figured out a program.
I love this program. It's a real beauty. Laila, just tell me a little bit. Okay, so in terms of Christmas time or wintertime favorites, what have we got?
Oh, so I'm allowed to spill the beans?
A little bit of beans. A little bit of
Okay,
beans.
some beans. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but one thing I've loved to do over the years is ask listeners, followers online, and audience members what they want to hear. And so I call it the Request-O-Matic. And a few months ago, I put out a call for jazz standards. What jazz standards would people want to hear me cover in the coming months? And I got 150 requests. And then I decided, let's put a holiday spin on things, and let's see what people would want to hear from the holiday canon. And so not as many requests came in, but there was a good number. And so I sifted through that list and chose, the ones that I felt resonance with, and also songs that I felt could be cracked open, that are either ubiquitous and I thought would be fun to reimagine in a totally different way with Scott, or a couple of lesser known tunes. So we've got Carol of the Bells, which will feature our extraordinary 80+ voice choir. Come on, but this for me, this may be normal for you, but this is not normal for me. And I did not get to experience the power of a choir in London, England. So that just makes this even more exciting. And then there's Sleigh Ride, which is more sort of traditional jazz swing feel, Let It Snow, but like kind of quirky reharmonizations, so that even people who aren't necessarily jazz lovers, I think will really appreciate what we've done that breathes fresh life into these old chestnuts. But we're not taking so much of the original content away that it won't feel warm and nostalgic and familiar, because I think it's really important to preserve the original character of the song enough that people, feel that warmth and familiarity. So yeah, Let It Snow, Sleigh Ride. A Child Is Born is a song that I actually arranged long ago, an instrumental version of it. It's a Thad Jones tune, and it's one of a few songs out there that kind of got pulled into the holiday repertoire, like in spite of itself. So in other words, Thad did not intend for that to be a holiday song, but I think just by virtue of the title, it got embraced as such, and it does really have that feeling, and Scott has reimagined it completely. So again, don't want to give too much away, but that's usually solo piano and voice, and he has arranged it for just the choir and my voice, and maybe some harp. Is that right, Scott? I'm trying to remember.
A little harp and a little bass. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
Very cool.
And yeah, and Scott, do you want to jump in and share about a couple of the other tunes? Because you actually selected a couple songs yourself, and that you imagined I, would fit well into.
Right. Well, we will be doing Hymn for Freedom. So that's one thing which will be featuring our choir. And
Hymn to Freedom, this is a Oscar Peterson tune.
That's right. Yeah, him, Oscar Peterson song, and the choir. It's a sort of a regular sing for them, so it's nice. They're going to be learning a lot of new music, but it's nice for the choir to come in and bring something that's their home base. And I think it's a wonderful text to have sung for this concert. So that's really nice, and it has kind of a bluesy feel. There's not a lot of kind of bluesy-esque kind of music on here, so I think that's nice. And there's a song actually that Laila introduced me to, and we discussed called "If We Make It Through December" that we'll be doing. And I'd actually never heard this song before, and so this is kind of the interesting chain. It's a Merle Haggard song originally, and then it's but she actually sent me a version that was kind of reimagined somewhat by Phoebe Bridges, and kind of a little bit closer to my taste, I guess you would say, in music. And so when you hear it done that way, the song really came to life. And then now I've sort of jumped off her version and created a new version from that for the orchestra. So that will be really nice on the program. So those are a couple of things that I've kind of brought to the table for the show.
You're also doing, or we are also doing, My Favorite Things, and I think this is being released as a single, right, Laila?
Yes, yes.
Very soon, like tomorrow.
So if we're allowed to timestamp this interview, December 2nd.
1st of December.
Yeah, exactly. So December 2nd, it comes out, and that's going to be just, I think, again, Scott's reimagining of my reimagining. It's like double. This music got filtered and reinterpreted twice. So it was like it got taken through my creative process. I put my stamp on it, and then Scott took that and brought it through his creative filters and put his stamp on it. So it's just, to me, it's like 4.0 or something. My favorite things 4.0. And and it's interesting. It's not a track I would typically choose, if I'm honest. Raindrops on roses and whiskey. We all just hear Julie Andrews. But because I'm a jazz musician, we also know Coltrane's epic 10-minute version, right? And so I tried to kind of combine those worlds somewhat and then bring my own voice to it, kind of holding space for them both to coexist. And it was actually a request. So it wasn't a song that I chose myself, but someone else wanted to hear what we would do with it. And I'm always up for a challenge because, again, that's a song. I mean, who doesn't know that song, right? So,
this is the art of arranging, right? And so a lot of the pieces on the concert, Scott has orchestrated. He's done a few arrangements, but largely the arrangements are your own. So, in terms of arranging classics, like you're also doing, I think, a solo of River.
Yes.
The Joni Mitchell tune. So when you're arranging this, what's your mindset? What are you thinking about?
So I often liken my process to a renovation rather than a rebuild. I know it's a little bit of a crude metaphor, but I don't want to remove the bones of the song. And you can't anyway, because you've got the melody and the lyrics and some harmony that you might pull from. But to me, inherent in the original version, but really with a focus on melody and lyrics, is the spirit of the song. And so I'm trying always to preserve the spirit of the song as much as I can while pushing it into new territory, but not so much so that like I'm almost like tearing it down and rebuilding. There are some arrangers out there who are super good at that. So, Bobby McFerrin, Jacob Collier, Dirty Loops, I think they're called, like this, crazy band out of Sweden. And they specialize in like deconstructing everything and then reconstructing it. And there's hints of the original content there for sure, but they're so different that the songs are almost unrecognizable. And that's fun, but that's not my goal as an arranger, since you asked.
Yeah.
I want to find that line where you stretch, you push, but at the same time you preserve and you honor as best you can,
Yeah, I like that. And then Scott, in terms of your approach to orchestration, we've ended up with a lush string sound for this, with brass accents. I think there's 4 horn players. How do you go about orchestrating a concert like this with a bit of a jazz perspective on it?
Yeah, sure. It's going to be a bit of a song to song approach. But talking about my favorite things was interesting because it does have this. I did actually get a sneak listen to the recording that's being released tomorrow, and was able to use that as my basis. And it's kind of a strange way of putting it, but what I tend to think of is and it's in that recording, is there's a saxophone player playing in it, and it's a jazz part in which the player is improvising in and around the voice, maybe playing a big solo, adding comments here and there. I basically replaced the saxophone with an orchestra. So I thought about what would an instrument do who was playing jazz? How would they work in and around the voice? And then I took that attitude and gave that to, and the choir actually is in there. So even the choir and the orchestra now become like a jazz saxophone, and just sort of work it from there. Write out, rather than having an improv solo, it would be a composed out solo, which gives it a somewhat different energy. But I think that's the nature of the beast. If you're having say a sax solo versus a guitar solo, that'll be different as well. So that's the basic way I tend to think of it. That's when you have when you have a rhythm section there too. So I don't have to worry about providing the foundational rhythm, or even with Laila's playing piano all throughout this as well, providing harmony and major transitional moments. So really I could just be that saxophone player. With the song, as I mentioned before, if we make it through December, that's where the orchestra actually is kind of taking lead in that. So in that case, I have to make sure that I'm providing all of the information, the rhythm, the harmony. And so that's when my job becomes maybe a little bit more kind of intense. I have to make sure that those things are going on. So it sort of depends on which song. But I would say most of this is much, and Laila's charts often have quite a bit of written information in there. So it might be sort of just doubling a rhythmic figure, like in Let It Snow. There's all kinds of like punches in and around the voice. I just took those and just put them into the brass and that sort of thing. So some of it really is just true orchestration. Some of it is more imaginative arranging.
Fun. Tons of fun.
Yeah.
Can't wait to play it. Can't wait. Now, we've alluded to a few other collaborators who will be on stage. First of all, you've got some of your bandmates there. Laila?
I do. And before I tell you about them, I just want to speak a little bit to what this process has been like with Scott, because it really has been such a delight. You don't know who you're getting paired with, right? And Andrew, you had suggested Scott as a possibility for arranging, and you knew that he would be conducting, and I didn't know Scott or his work. So what an amazing discovery for me, that is a relationship that will now last a lifetime, in my opinion. And the thing that I love so much about Scott, he's very humble, as you've just witnessed, but to really give him full credit, he's a true collaborator. So he brings to the table, again, that combination of like really respecting where I'm coming from as an artist, listening so closely to what I've done, studying my charts, gathering all that information. But then because he has a brilliant creative mind, he is also bringing in his ideas. Like he sent me, we're doing a really fun showstopper medley at the end that combines Joy to the World and an original song of mine called Joy. And Joy is an instrumental. It has a bit of an African, it's got kind of a bit quasi-African feeling to it. And so Scott came back and, said, would you mind if we used that approach in your arrangement of Joy to the World? And he even sent me a demo with him, like, playing in that style. And what it did was it just cracked open these new ideas, and for me, again, like breathed new life into songs I've been trying to breathe new life into. And so it's that what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word I'm looking for, like where it builds upon, the creativity is sort of building upon one another. His creativity is building on mine.
Mhm.
And again, taking the songs into new territory that I never even imagined. And so that has been deeply satisfying. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I hope that's okay.
No,
Perfect.
thanks so much, Laila.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, I think it's part of
Touched.
why this kind of a gig is fun for all of us, right? So
Yeah.
we're inviting in a guest artist like you, Laila, and who like clearly you don't have symphony charts that you're just handing to us on a silver platter. So there's a process, there's a collaborative process, and that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the concert comes and happens, and that is what it is for our audience, and we hope that it's wonderful, but we also want it to be great for the collaborators, for the writers, the arrangers, the orchestrator. I'm so glad that you both had a great experience.
Oh,
Well,
it's been
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah,
And
that's
what,
super cool.
sorry. And I have to say that, you know, this is our job. We're very fortunate to do what we love, but working with Scott has just reminded me how much the process can be about joy. And I feel like he comes at it with the same spirit, very diligent, very professional, very hardworking, conscious of deadlines and all that stuff, and very much on top of logistics and details. But at the end of the day, like, he's equally in it for the joy. I just sense that from him. And he's been so willing and ready to try things that we didn't even say that we would actually do when we signed on together. You know, he's just ready. Like, and so he took an original song of mine called Radiance, and I sent it to him.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll arrange this. Sure, why not? You know, like, people don't typically do that. It would be, well, I don't have a lot of time. And, you know, so I just appreciate him so much. But to answer your question, Andrew, about the collaborators, George Kohler, who's been a long time bassist in my band, he'll be there. And it's such a thrill to have him there, because I don't think anybody plays the bass like he does. So he'll be there in a role when he's part of the orchestra, but he's also equally part of the band and a rhythm section player. And you actually don't ever know what George is going to do on a given night. And so it's exciting, but what you can trust is that, you know, even if he pushes the boundaries a little bit, he's always, again, going to make sure that he's holding down the fort on the low end. And but yeah, he's amazing, and he has such a presence on stage that I think the audience will be just as delighted by what he does as anybody else. And then William Sperande is going to join us on trumpet. So he has a beautiful voice as a soloist, and he's toured with me a number of times. He actually has played with me in Stratford a couple of times. And he's just a great hang. He's a lovely guy, and he plays as well as anybody. So it'll be a real treat to have him there. And then my husband, Ben Whitman, will be on drums. And for me, that's like, you know, home. He's familiar. And, you know, it's, as you had asked earlier, it's both exciting and a little bit daunting to perform with a band or an ensemble of this size. Mostly it's exciting, but it can be overwhelming. So to have my, you know, musical security blanket of a husband next to me on stage, to me, he heard me say that. You may have seen him walk by earlier, and he gave me a little wink. But anyways, so it's like such a love fest. It's going to be such a love fest, and not in a way that's corny. I think in a way that the audience is just going to feel, they're not going to feel like they're watching something. It's not a spectacle. I think they're going to feel like they're at the table. They've been invited by the fireside, that warm, cozy, embracing feeling that we all want in the holiday season. That's what this night is going to be, in spite of the fact that it's so large in its scope. I think it's going to have the warmth of people gathered around a fire, sipping their eggnog, sharing a holiday moment together.
Along with like a 70-piece choir.
Exactly. Is it 70? I've been saying 80.
I say 170. I throw whatever number, whatever day. But this is the combined choirs of the London Singers and the HB Beale secondary school singers. And so, and so just a shout out to David Weaver, their conductor and music director, because he does such an amazing thing for choral music in London. So he's a teacher, he's a music teacher at HB Beale, which is renowned in London as being an art school, music focused school. They do amazing musicals. And so these choristers have this ability for jazz and rhythm and just fun and being able to shine on stage. But then last week, London Symphonia worked with this combined choir with the London Singers and HB Beale to put on the Mozart Requiem. So he's exposing these teenagers who were genuinely stoked about singing the Mozart Requiem. And I just think, wow, he's doing a totally amazing thing. And now they're joining us for this concert. And Scott, you've been at the rehearsals. Can you give us a glimpse as to what that's been like?
Well, to be honest, David likes to keep me away until sort of like near the end. They like to have their moments together. And I think, we can all understand that when you're learning music, you like to sort of be prepared before, Mr. Composer comes along and with this microscope. But I can say I have worked with David. We've gone over the music, and we actually had a collaboration back in 2019, which was really incredible for Christmas as well. And and for Sarah Slean concert as well, which is kind of like a whole other story how that went down, because we actually used a pre-recorded choir on the concert, which I don't know if it's ever been done before, but
I don't even think that's legal. That's not even legal to do that.
I don't know. Yeah, with a click track and all that.
It was amazing. I can't even believe it. Anyway,
wow, was that because of pandemic or what? Why was that?
Wow, that was because of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was the pandemic. We couldn't get them onto stage, and so during the live stream, we beamed in their pre-recorded, bits. And then our sound guy, Marvelous Jeff, he mixed it all together. So, wow. So this may be a complex show, but it's not as complex as that was.
It's pretty wild
to have the technological component as well. And actually, one thing about the fact that you have a high school choir in the mix that's so exciting for me. So my son Joshua, mine and Ben's son, he goes to Claude Watson School for the Arts here in Toronto. And he'll be with us that night, probably in the audience or backstage running around. And I just think it's so exciting because it's a family-friendly concert, right? Like we want people to come with their friends, their families, their nieces and nephews, like just kids that they love. And for the children in the audience to see themselves represented on stage, even if they're younger, they're going to relate to the high school kids more than anybody else on that stage. So to me, what an incredible opportunity to do something meaningful, I think, for the community and next generation of musicians. So again, how just wonderful that I don't know if you were thinking about that when you combined the London Singers with the high school singers, but to me, that's the net effect of having done so, is an invitation to the next generation, representation, right? Yeah. Right in front of them.
Yeah, real intergenerational. I mean, and that comes with David Weaver's approach, and it's just perfect. So we've run out of time. We could go on for another half hour. I'm really, really excited about this concert. Thank you so much, Laila, for joining us. And thank you, Scott, for all of your amazing efforts for this concert. And this is by the Fireside, December 10th. It will be live streamed and performed in person, of course, at 7:30 from the newly renovated Metropolitan United. Hope to see you all there.